Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are having a good day. And if you're not, we send you some sparkles and light to make your day feel a little better. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a while, everybody. It's Tiffany here, and I hope that you guys are all doing well. And come enjoy today's live, whether you're here live or replay. We would love your presence. Everyone has something to contribute, something to offer, and we want to hear from you today. So today we gotta get down to the shadows because it's been coming up collectively and individually, and I think that is a topic that we really need to talk about because there's a lot of books out there, and I think there's way more books that talk about spirituality and the light side, right? Channeling and all those wonderful stuff that I like to discover and talk about too. But when it comes to application on how do we work with spirituality in our practical lives, there is no manual for that, right? We just learn as we go. And so let's start a little discussion together. I have some notes that I wrote down here so we can talk about them together. And please feel free to use the chat if you're live or if you're joining in a replay. I love to hear from you guys. Every time we go on live, we have such a good time. Even my husband was like, wow, the people on your live are so nice and they have such good vibes. I'm like, yeah, isn't it amazing? Hi, Starby. Welcome. Hi, Jeremy, my dragon friend. Hi, Destiny. And Bodhi. Bodhi, do you ever go to sleep? It's like midnight for you, isn't it? Hi, Valeria. Welcome, everyone. So, since we're going to get down to business today, if you find this topic helpful, or if there's any points that you want to contribute or want to add in, please feel free to do so. This is a community talk. I wish you can sit together in a circle, but this is the best we can do right now. So, hi, Galaxy Waver, Stephanie, Frida, welcome, Natalie. Oh, I'm so glad to hear. Thank you. Blake, welcome, and Thomas. Yeah, is there a manual for this life? I think most of us are still trying to figure out what was in our soul contract. So we have to figure this out as we go. Cool. So back on topic, right? Spiritual shadows. I know I've done a lot of videos about spiritual shadows, but I find that, it evolves and it depends on the collective energy, it shifts, other layers comes out. And the thing with spiritual shadows is it's so sneaky sometimes we don't even realize we have these shadows. So full disclosure, when I'm talking about these points, I'm not judging anyone at all. So if it hits you in the energy field, you're like, ooh, that's me. I'm not judging, because for me to talk about this, it means that I have gone through it and have, realized it in myself. So yeah. And those of you that in astrology, I'm a Virgo, so Virgos, they've got some shadows to work on. So let's talk about the first thing first. So number one, right, the first shadow that I see, and I wanted to bring this up because I've been seeing a lot of people struggling lately, not only because of the intense solar energy that is blasting through Earth right now. Two, being locked down for over a year take a mental and wellness toll on our body. Three, we are social creatures. So online is great, but it's still not the same. Like, we want to go out, we want to see other people, we want to see what they're wearing, we want to be inspired by other people's energy, but we don't have the opportunity now. So a lot of us are very isolated. And when we are in that space, a lot of shadows can seem overpowering to a lot of us. So I've been hearing a lot of people having a really tough time and a lot of shifts, right? Some people can't work, some people lost their jobs and endings of relationships. The timeline that recently converged with my recent post that I talked about, a lot of shift has been happening. There's like no breaks for light workers. And on top of that, we're still cleaning up this planet grid line. There's so many grid workers like yourself have been working so hard to clean up grids, awake in your dreams. There are light workers like healers, right? Like ourselves, teachers, trying to bring the messages out. And there are some of us that are really struggling as a collective. And because we are entangled quantumly, we're going to feel it. So then there are all these crazy agendas that we have to, almost stand up and say no. And I won't go into too much of that, but there's a lot going on. It can be very intense. So yeah, so it's a lot. So first thing first about spiritual shadow is passive aggressiveness. And we do this so much. And I notice that as light workers, some empaths, we go one or the other. We overgive, and then we have blockages receiving. Then afterwards, we don't feel good about giving. Then we'll point the finger at our friends and say, they were not there for me. They were not supportive of me. Or if we don't receive enough, we'll be like, the world is just sucking my energy. And we tend to go one way or the other. And I do this too. And I'll be like, okay, come back, Tiffany. You're being overly one way or the other. Come back to the center. So the passive aggressiveness, and I think a lot of you guys follow Teal Swan, and I know some people was like, oh, she's da-da-da-da. Honestly, to me, I think that we all have weakness and strength. We all have shadows, and, we're all humans. If you want to dig past my Facebook 10 years ago, you're going to see me clubbing in short skirts. So don't judge any spiritual teachers for their past. And so I really like her because the way she conveys some messages like Matt Kahn, it's very helpful. So that's what I wanted to bring up. And I also want to give credit. So if I am talking about some material that I didn't come up with, I try my best to give credit to the teachers. So she talked about covert narcissism, and I actually never heard of it. And one of my clients actually shared with me about that. I'm like, what is covert narcissism? And they say it's when someone is trying to get their needs met by being super passive aggressive, almost manipulative. And when we had childhood where our needs are not met, we think that the only way to get it is be nice, but kind of manipulative at the same time to get what we need. And so we all do it sometimes, right? Instead of just speaking out loud and saying, hey, could you do this for me? We did it in like a squiggly line way. My husband does shadow work too, so he called me out on that. So I'm like, oh yeah, well, crap. And you're like, I don't want to admit it, but I'm doing it. So I want to invite you guys to be in a space of try not to judge yourself, but as we're going through these points, really looking into this and say, is this the reason why I am stuck? Because I find that a lot of people, they will say, I am stuck. And then when you try to tell them about their shadow, they just shut you off right away. They're like, nope, this does not resonate with me. You are not a good reader. Da, da, da. I'm like, but you just asked me how to get unstuck, and your guides are asking you to do this shadow work to get unstuck. So there's a self-sabotage component in there too. So we do that to ourselves, and shadow work is not easy because we have to be very honest with ourselves. So the first thing that come up is the passive aggressive or the covert narcissism that we tend to do as spiritual people. And the other thing I wanted to bring up for us as a collective to process is obsession. So this also, Teal Swan also talked about it recently. She talked about an experiment where there was these mice. So, and then there's a button. When they press on the button, a treat come out. If you programmed it that every time they press, there's food that come out. When they're hungry, they would press on the button to get food. And then when you do some type of other cases where sometimes food will come up or sometimes it doesn't, then the mouse, they go crazy. They become obsessed with the button. Because it's almost like, oh my God, when am I going to get that thing? When am I going to get that need met? And in her example, she was saying how we do this in relationships a lot. And she was like, some people would use this type of technique to drive their partner crazy. And then they would be like, yeah, they just acting crazy, not seeing that they themselves are part of the problem by making the person crazy. So you guys might have seen memes out there that say, "Oh, if you say your girlfriend is crazy, you should look at yourself in the mirror. How did you make her crazy in the first place?" So I thought that was so interesting that we should bring it up as a community when it comes to spiritual shadows. Because I will give you an example. Let's say you get random messages about guides and you share it to people around you. You're doing exactly what that experiment is doing to people. Sometimes, depending on that person, the receiver's trauma, shadows, or personality, they might become obsessed, right? So then they latched onto your energy field, like, oh, when is she going to give me that next message? Or when is she going to, randomly bless me with this reading? And then they become like attached to you. And then you all of a sudden like, oh, why is this person attaching to me? Like, all I did was just tell her messages that I get here and there. When a person that has done a lot of their shadow work, they will not become attached to you because they would just be able to detach and be like, oh, wow, thank you for the message. That was wonderful. Well, look at that. And then they go on with their day, not attached. But there are some people, because of our conditioning and trauma, become attached to, this type of giving. And then we are like, why is that person attached to us when we have been feeding into that behavior all along? So that's the second thing I wanted to bring up is we not got to look at, when someone is acting a certain way, are we also contributing to that behavior as well? Because it's so easy to just say that person is crazy or that person is just, acting not the way I want them to. But it's harder to look at ourselves and be like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe I shouldn't have created that type of expectations, or maybe there was miscommunication that created the expectation. So I think sometimes we just have to be really honest with ourselves, because I do this. I don't know if you guys do this. So I used to say, I'll be here whenever you need me. That is a big trap that a lot of empaths we put ourselves into. Because then now you give the other person this expectation that, oh, whenever I need them, they should be there for me, and they promise they will be there. So on the days when they expect you to be there and you can't be there for them, then they have this resentment, right? What they told me that if they're my friend, they should be there. And then they just start to feel, well, this whole friendship is a fraud then, because they weren't there for me in this moment. So that's happened to me in the past, and that's why I never say that phrase to people anymore, because that's setting up a boundary that doesn't do either party any good. So perhaps, I don't know if this will help some of you out there, if you're someone that say, oh yeah, I'll be there for you anytime you need, or call me whenever you need. This type of wording sometimes can create some imbalances between both parties. And we only have one brain, right? And two hands. So we might be able to do this for our children or someone that's really close to us, but not to everyone. So nowadays, when I don't say something like this, it gives me more breathing space. I don't really have those issues with people around me. Like when they need help, they text me and I say, well, if I can help, I help them by connecting with someone else or send them resources or something like that. So that might be helpful to some of you that feel like people are not there for you when you need them, or people always latching energetically onto you. You feel so pressured to give all the time. Is notice, are you saying or doing things that make people have that type of expectations? Because we do that as givers and as empaths. So and if you really want to go deeper in the shadow work, you can say, okay, where is this tendency coming from? A lot of us that grow up in abusive household, the only way to earn love is to do something, right? With parents and stuff. The only way is to earn the love by giving, giving, giving. But the most beautiful thing is to realize that just being who you are, just sitting in the room, just like that, just here, this is enough for you to be loved. You don't have to do anything else. And when you reach that type of friendship, which I've experienced sometimes, you can sit in a room together and not say anything to each other and still have a great time. So, I have a friend where we would just sit down. If we want to talk, we talk. But if we want to just paint, we just paint. We have no pressure to talk to each other. There's just this nonverbal communication and connection. And then once the coloring is done, we're like, okay, well, I feel it's time to go now. And then we just go. So I think that's why a lot of us have social anxiety, because we feel like we need to be a certain way. We have to entertain. We have to, keep the conversation going. I have become that lazy socializer where I will just show up, and if I don't want to say anything, I'm totally cool with it and super chill. So, allow yourself to get to that point where you don't need to give to be able to receive love. So, and it's really a blessing if we can find friends that also understand this and create that environment with us. And so that's a second thing about spiritual shadows, is sometimes we feel like when we're in with spiritual people, we have to be spiritual. Like we have to be a certain way, then or else we won't fit in. But I think diversity is good. Diversity keeps things interesting. The third thing, a lot of us, and you guys can chime in too, do you struggle with boundaries? And boundaries go both ways. A lot of times we only focus on the outwards, right? Like how we give, but then we don't focus on the boundary on this way in. Like, are you receiving love the same way that you allow yourself to receive criticism, right? How are these bi-directional energy coming through your field? A very good example with boundaries, and nobody teaches that, right? So we have to learn, I have to learn too, is with giving each other readings. So this come up a lot because I train healers and they bring this up to me. They'll be like, I give people these readings because I receive these messages. And I feel like if I get these messages, then I have to share it. 2 questions to ask yourself. And thank you to one of my clients for inspiring this portion, because we're working on that. Number 1, and I almost forgot about this. Before I give anything, I ask myself, Tiffany, are you going to regret this a week from now? Are you really giving with no string attached? So I have to ask myself that, because a lot of people will come and they will be like, I give to this person, but when I needed them the most, they were not there for me. So that's string attached, right? So I'll ask myself, am I going to hold this against the person after I give it to them, right? And then the second question I ask is, am I able to detach from the results or outcome after giving? So this is important, especially for you healers or readers out there, because once you taught a class, once you completed a session, are you able to just let go and not be attached to the outcome? Because a lot of times a reading or whatever you're doing in that moment applies during that moment. If you hold on to the session, your client is going to hold on to that session. Right? If you're like, well, this is what I can help you with at this time, based on your current state of being, you're going to shift, right? And this message might not apply. Maybe you've integrated now, and now you need something more. So try to ask yourself these 2 questions when you're giving. Are you going to regret it? Is it really no string attached? And second, can you fully detach from the outcome after giving? So that will help you next time you want to say yes, yes, yes to giving all the time, to really take a moment and say, wait, am I doing this because my shadow think I'm not good enough and I need to give to earn love? Or am I actually doing this because I feel that I want to? So, yes, shadow work, being honest with yourself. And I learned this the hard way, both ways with boundaries, because I used to do live reading, right, on YouTube, and I stopped. The reason was some people got so offended. It's like, sometimes you think you're giving in a way that you think you would love to receive, but to the person it's like an attack. So the example was I was doing reading on YouTube, and then I told this lady, I'm like, oh, you have this color in your auric field, and open your heart a bit more. And she got so offended. She was like, you are an entity violating my boundary. Get out my field. I was like, okay. So number one, right? That's like us violating other people's boundaries, even though we think we are doing good. And the other thing with boundaries, when you do a lot of these free readings, sometimes, again, people become too dependent on your readings. And they, instead of focusing on their self-trust, they become reliant on you. So the key here is, as I teach my students all the time, make your clients do their own work. They're trying to, make you do the work for them. But sometimes as a teacher, you gotta teach them how to fish for themselves. And how do you do that? By doing your own shadow work. That's how I'm able to sit here and talk to you guys about this, because I've gone through it. And now I can talk to you guys about it. And you can now do the same thing with your clients because you have done it. So your inner work is always making you a better healer, better light worker, light warrior. It's never, ever wasted. It's hard, but I find in my journey, some of the best spiritual teachers are the ones that do their shadow work. So there's that. Now let's see how's chat doing. Yes, it takes two to tangle. Absolutely. Yes, Lars, just be authentic. Also become quite reclusive. Yes, Lars, happy with nature. Absolutely. Oh, Stephanie, thanks for bringing up. That's so true. People who ask for help but are not ready for it. So that happens too. And I wanted to make another video more specifically helping new healers. But sometimes you will have clients that come to you wanting to get unstuck, but when you show them the way, they block you right away. For example, I see 2 to 3 clients a day. So I see quite a lot of people. But then sometimes in the past 5 years, I only had this happen a few times, where they show up, they want to get unstuck. And then when you start to tell them the message, they just shut you down. Like they look at you as the enemy. And I'm like, wait, hold up. You're the one that booked the appointment. like what's going on? Without going into details, it's this person who wants to work on a relationship with their partner. And in the reading, her guides were showing her some lifetimes where she had really good lifetimes with her husband. And the idea here is to get her to open up her heart more for compassion. But she was just like very, just like, that doesn't resonate. That's not him in this lifetime. So, and then, that's the lesson is trying to come, right? To help her, you have more compassion with your partner and you can solve the problem together, but she doesn't want to hear it. So sometimes you're going to get clients like that, or friends that comes to you who wants the truth, but when you slam the truth, they hate you for it. So there's like a meme that says, everybody wants the truth, but not everyone is ready to handle it. It's true. And I have been on that end too, where some therapists have said something to me. I'm like, wow, what the heck? That's not true. And then, but like 2 years later, I'm like, yeah, she's totally right. Maybe her delivery could be a little better, but she was right. So that's shadow work. Let's see. Also, if you shine bright light, if you shine bright, you shine on other people's shadow and they get angry. That's true. Sometimes with some of you light workers, I find some of you tend to trigger people's shadows. And it's not a bad way because some healers do that. Like Teal Swan, she's really good at that. If you've ever seen her work with people, she will not hold back and tell you exactly the truth that you need to hear. Like the very first thing she told me, she's like, "You have daddy issues." I'm like, "Oh shit, yeah." Like, so she's very honest and she get hate for it. But that's part of her gift as a healer. She will dig up the deepest part of your stuff that you don't want to see. So some of you light workers I notice are like that. And you do it around your friends too. And then I see these light workers have a harder time to connect with friends because they tend to do that. And so what I would do or suggest with some of you that are like that, try to take down the healer title when you're with your friends and just be yourself. You don't need to go into a circle and be like, oh, that person had this shadow, that person has that shadow, my friend has this shadow. Just be, we are just traumatized children living in this crazy world. So be children from time to time. And I have 5D friends. I don't want to say 3D friends, but friends that are not spiritual, but I still love them. I connect with them because I don't put on the spiritual hat when I'm with them. I'm just Tiffany. So maybe that would help. And if you guys have any tips too, please share it in the chat box. Let's help each other out. Veracity said a hard pill to swallow is taking responsibility for what you can control. Yes, that's sovereignty, guys. We always talk about sovereignty, but what does sovereignty means? It means taking responsibility. Exactly. It's a lot about perspective sometimes. Yes, to get real. Sorry, I definitely trigger even if I don't trigger people, even if I don't want to. Yes, that happens to us, eh? And okay, the fourth point for today's discussion is the shoulds. So I do this too, and I also learned this in my relationship. When I first started dating my husband, I was treating him like my therapist. So on top of being my partner, I was expecting him that he should be able to, support me in all of my emotional problems. But then I realized one of my coaches like, he's not your therapist, he's your husband. And I'm like, oh shoot. So we gotta catch those shoulds. Another example is sometimes I hear light workers say, well, my friends are woke, they are spiritual. They should know how to take care of me. They should know how to show up. They should know how to support me. Actually, we don't. Because we're not mind readers. And, to me, sometimes when I'm upset, physical touch is very comforting to me. But I have had experience where when someone is upset, I try to hug them, they got very offended because of their trauma, and I didn't cue into that, right? So we're just doing what innately feels what we would want for that person. So we actually don't. So maybe your friend think to support you is to give you space, but then you think that they're not being there for you when that's just how they think, that would be the best way to support you. So as a spiritual community, we need to also be honest with, are we imposing shoulds on each other? Like some people would be like, oh, Tiffany is a spiritual teacher, she should not have emotions. I'm like, oh, no. Nah. I have emotions, trust me. So we need to let go of the shit and take a moment here, like share with me, everybody, like, do you have any should sentence that you have recently put on yourself or others? The other thing is I hear a lot of people say, I'm spiritual, so I should be able to channel all the time. Or if, I am spiritual, I should be spiritual all the time. Or if I want to be spiritual, I should do meditation every day. So, those kind of things, or a lot of people go through this phase where they want to take a break from spirituality, and then they feel bad about it. I'm like, wow, please don't. With everything, you need a break. Everything has a season. And taking that break is part of that process. So like some of you sure you needed to take a break from socializing, you needed to take a break from spirituality. By all means, take the break and have no shame about it. So that's the fourth point we want to discuss today. So let's see. Triggers are the responsibility of the one trigger. That's true too. And if it's someone close to you, I think we can work on like how not to trigger each other. you know, like there's certain things that I do that trigger my husband. And tell me, oh, can you not do that, please? No, but okay. And there's certain things I do to him, right, that I shouldn't do. So we make each other aware and we call out each other's shadows. But the lucky thing is we both patient, compassionate enough to not let it get to our relationship and just, okay, yeah, no, they're right. um, let's see, what else do we have? Just who you are. Hi, Sunday Coco. Destiny, I was a teacher and a behavior management coach. Ooh, I should be able to have patience with my children all the time. Oh, yeah, the mom guild, guys, the parental guild. Yes, absolutely. And even like occupational guilt too. Like some therapists would be like, I work with clients, so I should not be anxious or depressed. But you're human too. Struggle with being neutral and people get upset on social media. Me too. Sometimes I do that, but then I just remind myself, okay, just breathe. And even nature leans towards balance. Oh, I love it. See, you guys are so wise. I love our hangouts. And see, you guys see, even though I'm doing this for free, we're all getting something from it. So don't worry, I won't hold it against you. There's no string attached. So number 5, let's talk about, yes, actually we talked about a little bit standards of being awakened. So we put ourselves in like this box, the shadow of what a spiritual person needs to be like. And we do this to ourselves and we impose it on others and even friends as well. Because sometimes people will be like, well, they're a healer, they should know how to handle this. It's like, no, we are human. Why would we know how to interact? That's why we have a voice. We're not telepathic yet. When we get to 5D, we will, but now we still need to have a lot of communication. So I don't know, have you noticed, chat, any standard that you put on yourself or standard that you put on your friends because they awoke? I noticed this a lot, and that's a collective shadow that we all have that we have to be really honest about. So, because there's another thing that the spiritual teachers, they talk about how as spiritually awakened people, we are forced to awaken because we've gone through trauma. And so when you really look at the spiritual community, it's just a whole bunch of us that are trying to heal and are aware that we have been traumatized. So when you really look up from your higher self, we're a bunch of like inner children just trying to learn in this playground. It's kind of harsh sometimes. So having that standard on each other may not be fair for ourselves, and it may not be fair for our spiritual friends either. And sometimes these shadow things can be very, very, very sneaky. So you might be thinking, oh yeah, I don't do that. I used to be like that. I don't do that. And then you're like, oh no, I actually do it in this subtle way. So you get to catch yourself. Oh, and then this one, the next one, number 6, let's talk about this shadow, is I know this already, or I've done this already. How many of you have done this before to yourself? Like I would be in a session and then somebody would just cut me off and say, I know this already. This is so principle and basic. And I'm like, okay, but your reaction is telling me it's not really integrated. You just sometimes as the healer, you have to be like, I'm so sorry, I have to speak my truth. Or you are working through with a client, they're like, I have done this already, it doesn't work. But you never hear someone in the gym to say, yeah, I've done this run 50 times, so I'm not going to do it because I've done it a lot of times. So I'm laughing because this is like the biggest block that a lot of us do to ourselves, is we think we know everything and then we block ourselves. Let's see. My therapist said she broke up with a dude because he wouldn't stop treating her like his personal counselor boundary. Yes, so true. Oh, how about I'm not talking about bioplasma. I should do a video, but I've been so tired and busy. That's why you haven't seen me in a while. So that's my boundaries. I need to self-care too. So let's see. Yes. Oh, thanks, Stephanie. So another one is, yes, I should know this by now. So we do that too. We should know this by now, right? So anytime you catch yourself saying, I know this already, I've done this already, I should know this already, that's some shadow side, mostly the ego that are playing these thoughts. Then the next point is spirituality is still a bridge. Do you guys agree? I think it is. I don't think it is the end goal. I think it is still a bridge. And if you really look at it, some spiritual practice are like our coping mechanism to cope with the world. So to me, it's still a bridge. It's not the end goal. It's not a destiny that you need to arrive and then be like, yay, I made it. And then now what? It's like a continued journey, but you get more and more insights the more you go. And so that's why that last block, like, I know this already, or I've done this already, that's where a lot of people get stuck, because they get into that space of this time loop and they're not able to go beyond that. So one thing that really helped me, and one of my Indian teacher, Vedic teacher, he taught me this. When you are stuck in spirituality, move towards naturality instead. So instead of saying, okay, I need to do all these rituals, all these ceremonies, all these practices, and people get to that point where they get burned out. It's like a rubber band. You grow so fast, but you have not taken the time to integrate it yet. You get burned out, and then all of a sudden you snap. And you're like, well, I want nothing to do with spirituality. I want to just not even look at crystals. I don't want to be around spiritual people. And then you get burned out, spiritual burnout. So when you hit those points, we sometimes do, right? Is you got to go into that space of being natural, right? If you let go of these practices, who are you? What do you want to feel? It's to go back what Cryon says, the innate. I love that when he talks about the innate, because this is like the innate intelligence that is within you. So instead of pushing yourself, channeling all the time, go back to your innate. The tree, in a way, is channeling all the time, but at the same time, it's not. It's just innate. So hope that helps. So if you guys have any other tips for other light workers too, please feel free to share. Like when you hit a spiritual burnout, what do you do? So we go to 5D Earth, have arrived, we can relax. Just relax, take it easy. Be natural, go back to natural law. And last thing I want to talk about today is expectations of how things need to go, which fall into the shadows that a lot of teachers talk about resonate. Right? You'll hear a lot of us in the spiritual community say that does not resonate, or this person does not resonate. But a lot of times the very thing that you might not resonate is a shadow that needs to be worked on. So sometimes, right? Not all the time, right? Like I don't resonate with human trafficking. That's a fact. That's the truth. But sometimes if I'm not resonating with this certain teacher talking about this or that touch you're talking about that. Maybe it's just me being resistant and stubborn, or being in my ego, not open to seeing what's deeper into it. Most of us in our chat, I think you guys are pretty open, but in the beginning of our journey, sometimes always sticking to resonate can block us, and expectations of how things need to go. The best type of sessions that I've ever done are always those that have no expectation. They just show up, they have an idea of what they want to work on, and then they just let things flow. The ones that try to control the session is like pulling a tug of war with them. So when we can allow ourselves to step into humility, I find that that's really helped melt that part of the spiritual shadow of expectations. So I don't know, like, do you guys have any expectations sometimes? Have you learned anything about your expectations that kind of block you at the same time? I think this happened to me. The best example is my relationships. I always used to have an expectation of what my partner needs to be like needs to be older than me, needs to make more money than me. I know, very 3D, right? This is 3D Tiffany, okay? And wanted him to be more successful than me, and I had all these expectations. The moment I was like, the F word, like, F it. I am done with chasing guys. I'm done with trying to get a relationship. And then I just went to yoga, did my own inner work. I took classes, work on myself. That's when I met my husband now. And he was nothing like any of my expectations. so so sometimes, I know, maybe you were like me, you're stuck in your twin flame journey. Maybe kind of evaluate your expectations and be like, okay, can I let this expectation go? Because, guys, my partner and my husband ended up being 7 years younger than me. Like, the Tiffany, let's call her the 3D Tiffany, would have never even thought about that. And he was Latino. I never thought that I would date a Latino. So no, he was like, he came in and he broke down all of my expectations. So the real partner might be just that, or your destiny or your dream job might be exactly the opposite of your expectations. So yeah, and I used to have these 3D fantasy where, oh, I need to be safe by this man who makes more money than me. And now I am the boss. I'm the boss babe. So so things can switch, and you never know. Once you let go of those expectations, it can really open you up to exactly what you are looking for. So very, very, very interesting. Let's see, how's chat going? I feel like May is going to be some intense portals and transitional energy. Have you gotten any messages on that? I'll be honest, guys, I think this whole year and next year is just gonna be intense. If you guys follow David Wilcock or like Corey Good, that type of community, they talk about solar flares, right? And even if you follow Schumann resonance, the flares are happening like all the time. So I think there's just gonna be waves and waves and waves of energy that is needed for the awakening. So I think that's just gonna be, because I feel like I'm like a broken record. I'm like, guys, oh my God, this week's energy is so crazy. And then 2 weeks later, it's like, guys, oh my God. So now I'm just gonna be like, okay, we're just gonna like surf the tsunami. Ascension symptoms, yes, absolutely. So remember a few weeks ago or last week, I did like a post on YouTube and Facebook where I said the timeline collapsed or converged together, and we had some weird ascension symptoms like dizziness or feeling you're in and out of reality or space, memory loss, right? Very weird stuff like that. But at the same time, feeling this purging of energy and feeling better afterwards. So I know a lot of you guys are feeling this way, and you guys can share too if you have been experiencing any ascension symptoms. A feeling of disconnection and self happiness. Yeah, that's another ascension symptoms, actually, disconnection. And we're kind of conditioned right now, right, with the lockdowns to be disconnected. So I think some of us need to make extra effort to connect with friends or people. I see people like magenta pixie she's gathering like workers together who are also feeling lonely and disconnected. My friends that are taking initiative and just saying, I'm going to start Starseed meetup every week. So we need to make the effort to reconnect, and especially with Larset Nature. So, hi Stephanie, hi Gary. Never thought about dream job as based on expectations. Yes, we do have a lot of expectations on ourselves, don't we? And Crystal, what causes the memory loss? So to me, I think is partly because of our DNA upgrade, or some people, there's so many fancy terms, right? Crystalline body upgrade, diamond body upgrade, diamond DNA, 5D body upgrade, however you call it, the light body upgrade. And also the timeline fluctuation too. When you get zoomed into different timelines, you're like, oh, okay. And even when some of you that are astral travelers at night, if you have a really intense dream and you come back, it will feel like a reset, like your computer rebooted itself. So that can also cause some memory loss. Well, mind you, I am not a doctor. So if you feel it's more serious, go check it out with your doctor. This is just spiritual energy wise. Yes, some people have dizziness, brain fog, waking up around 3 a.m. Oh, yeah. And those of you that are more astrology inclined will be able to tell even more. Hi, Dahlia. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many. Who do you guys follow for astrology? I follow this really beautiful lady. I think she's Octarian, has some Octarian energy. Heather Cowford. No, she's pretty well known on YouTube. Heather, she's like a really nice lady. She talks very soft, and she talks about astrology. And when you listen to her, you feel like, oh, like listening to a grandmother's story time. Yes, Perla, that's true. When you do Akashic work, it can open your perception to different timelines as well. Vivid dreams, exhausted. I definitely have been feeling the exhaustion. That's why I haven't made like videos a lot. Telegram. Really? They remove Laura? That's crazy. I thought Telegram was non-censored, but I guess not. Hi, Sandy. So feeling more ungrounded this past week with brain fog and fatigue. You guys can notice this in your animals too. Have you noticed your pets are shifting? Their consciousness are more higher, but sometimes when you feel off, they feel off too. So animals can talk a lot. Can also have rosology. So some people follow rosology. Jess. Some people follow Molly McCord. Nice. Yeah, so we have to ground, we have to really be in nature a lot, especially as starseed that tend to go out. And some people have talked about this. I'm not too scientific with the 5G stuff, so I don't have like meters and stuff. But some people say they're cranking up the 5G. That's why it's making a lot of people sick as well. If you want to go how deep the rabbit hole, but if you are sensitive to EMF, like I am, counterbalance with the sound healing. So you can use riff frequency, you can use those healing frequencies on YouTube, singing bowls, tuning forks to rebalance your field. So the good news is if you're sensitive to these electromagnetic waves, you're also very sensitive to sound healing, which is great. So you can use sound healing to help as well. Oh, hi, Linda. Nice to meet you. Lars, animals come close to me now. Must be my vibration. Oh, that's so nice. Hi, Christina. Yes, shungite for EMF. I always have a piece of shungite with me all the time because of the 5G towers that they're putting up. So shungite look like this, and I think you can only get them imported from Russia. So I think that's the authentic one. And they are electroconductive. So you can actually use this for your phone. It actually works. Whereas if you use like a quartz crystal, it doesn't work. So there's definitely some special abilities in the shungite. How do you guys heal with your singing bowls? I just like to kind of play it if I can do it outside. It's kind of cold in Canada, so I can't really do that. But if you can go outside and just play the singing bowl or in your house, I like to just knock it a few times or tune it a few times and let the vibration washes over my body. I know there's different ways to play singing bowls as well, so it really is up to you. Oh, nice. Well, actually, lots of you guys have shungite. Black tourmaline is really good too. Thanks, Silver Star Priestess. Yeah, I have a big chunk of black tourmaline on my nightstand. Turn off your phone if you can when you sleep. Your Wi-Fi as well, if you're really sensitive to that. Sometimes I find we all do this where we go on our phone before we go to bed. I get like worse dreams when I do that. So I try not to do too much. And if you are using your phone, you can just put like a piece of shungite. Because sometimes when I hold my phone for too long, maybe some of you do it too, then your hands start to like burn. You feel that? That's like the, I don't know, 5G burn or EMF burn, especially when you're charging your phone. So if you hold a piece of shungite, I find that it helps neutralize some of those effects. Oh, some people are saying fermented food is good against 5G, silver scarves as well. Organite, yes, thank you. Organite, pyramid also helps a lot. Lots of great tips from your fellow light workers. Awesome. Yeah, amazing. So yes, armor up, shields up, and keep your immune system healthy. Drink your smoothie, eat your veggies, take your vitamins, vitamin D, zinc. What's the other one? I forgot. Oh, vitamin C to boost your immune system. So awesome. Well, that's all I have for today. So thank you for joining me and talking about these spiritual shadows. I know it's not always the topic that people is like, ooh, I can't wait to listen to this. It's like, oh crap, okay. But it's worth it. Sometimes you get even better results with shadow work combined with light work. So how can we explain timeline collapsing? How do you know? How can you tell that it's happening? To be honest, it's kind of like a weather forecast that we tune into when you become really like attuned to the astral weather. There are signs too. For me, the sign was all of a sudden these things that were left unresolved in September 2020 all of a sudden came back in that portal. And I would check right? With my clients and students, they will also say, yeah, I started a relationship at this point and then now it's ending in this point. Other people say, yeah, we started talking about last year, September, all of a sudden. So there are signs that you get to see there was a timeline convergence happening. So you get to see those signs. It's like taking one end of the timeline and then merging it with the timeline now. So that can happen. When the timeline diverge is when a lot of times you see people separate or they go into like two different realities. I think some people call the Mandela effect, but I also understand there's many parallel Earths. So parallel Earths diverge. That's a timeline divergent. Oh, Frederick said try Blue Shield. It's really good to use. I think I've heard about it. Oh yes, work with your dragons. Call in your dragons. Hi, Perla. Walking in nature or just outside is just as good a meditation. Absolutely. Do whatever form works for you. Breath work, taking a bath, making a smoothie can be a meditation. Ground with the trees. That's going to be very important. And soak up the sun, guys. Oh my God. So on Telegram, I'm a little bit more uncensored. The sun, it's upgrading us, our DNA. That's the reason they don't want us to go outside, because they don't want us upgraded. So whenever you can, go outside, soak up the sun. I guarantee you feel better. It's just that we've been chained up in the house that everybody's starting to go a little ooh because we haven't had our battery recharged by the sun. So go out, soak up the sun as much as you can. That will absolutely help you feel better. The other thing I want to talk about maybe in the future on YouTube is aligning to the Stargate. So the first Stargate we should align to is our sun, right? So as our sun is blasting these light codes, this etheric energy to us, we feel it, but we're not physically attuning to it. So some of us that notice we have less ascension symptom. Why? It's because they already attuned to the sun on a consistent basis. So if you do a little bit of practice where you go aside, like what some of the shamans do, they've been teaching us this for a long time. And also that's why they are suppressed, because again, anything that's good for us is suppressed. So go outside, right? Hold the sun, like soak up the sun, put it in your third eye, put it in all your chakras, align your energetic body to the sun. And once you and the sun is in the same harmonious state, you won't get those ascension symptoms. And then the next wave comes, you again attune yourself to the sun. Then each time the upgrade comes, you're not like being hit on the face. You're like, okay, I'm attuned. And I do notice that sometimes when I feel really out of balance and I do this Stargate alignment practice, then I feel better. I don't feel any of the symptoms. So try that, guys. I think that will help. Yes, sun light codes. So some people call it solar light codes. What are the other ones? Stargate codes. They all the same thing. So oh, the really Gary. So your wife and you notice the timeline conversion watching All Souls, all shows seems different than before. That's so true. And sometimes with timeline convergence and collapsing, all of a sudden you will remember something in the past. You'll be like, oh, I haven't thought about this thing in a very long time. Or sometimes it's coming up too clear. Maybe you guys would resonate with this. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I did this really embarrassing thing 3 years ago. And it just pops up out of nowhere. But right away I say, okay, that was like the 3 years ago, Tiffany. I'm not that same person anymore. I'm not going to hold myself to this suffering. So I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to ask for forgiveness. I'm going to let it go. So that's all you have to do when those moments come up, is just to complete whatever loose string is coming up for you. It's like, oh, past guilt or past shame. Just, okay. And then leave it, let it go. And you can be more in the present timeline. And you see, guys, they don't teach us these stuff on the news. They don't teach us these stuff in the school. That's why we're always stuck in a time loop, because we don't know how to do this stuff. We just get trapped into the time loop. And I'm like, we need a new education system. So speaking of which, last thing before I share, before I go off, is you remember one time I talked to you guys about Life Force, this app that I found, and they upgraded to a website called GeForce, I think .network or something, and they are creating assemblies. So they are bringing people together, and each state and country is starting to come together to create their own government that is for the people. And so I know there's a few states in the US have their own assemblies already. New York, Missouri, I think Texas have their own assembly. So these are all people coming together to create the new earth. They have a restoration plan. And if you have Telegram, I have show some examples of what this restoration plan is. And when you look at it, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the new earth. So if you are interested in, getting your hands in there, seeing if you want to take part in it, you can check them out, geforce.network. I'll post it on my Telegram. And I know some people was like, oh, this person, that person, the Intel, Mr. T, Mr. B, but that is all distraction. We need to just come together and just do it. So that's what Life Force, they're creating a platform for people to come together. And what I really like about Life Force is they're not pretending like they're the saviors. They're saying, no, we need you, the people, to do this with us. And the leader is Ground Commander Kim Grogan. So I also like her because she disclosed galactic stuff. Like, she's not like Mr. T or Mr. B. Don't disclose this stuff. She'll just say, yeah, I had a meeting with the Universal Council, and this is what came up during the meeting. She tells us as much as she knows that she can share. So I like that. Also like that she's grounded, and I like her energy. And I like the way that she's presenting herself, that I'm like, she doesn't present herself as a savior, but like, no, guys, I need your help. I need you guys to start your assembly. We need to work on this together. And she's like, you don't even need to call yourself Life Force Assembly. Do whatever you want, but let's create this change. So that's what I like about them, and just a resource for some of you that might be interested or want to get more active in creating the new earth. Oh, really, Bodhi? Yes, that's good. Yes, absolutely. It's always good to get the light codes from the sun. I think that's why the Peruvians, they call themselves children of the sun, because they connect with the stargates a lot. Awesome. Oh yes, cities of light. Thank you, Jenny. Yes, they call eco light cities or cities of light, and it's just so beautiful. I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to be part of that. And the thing is, with Kim, she's the ground commander. Now I haven't checked out everything yet. Like, everything I just watch and take part, but I'm not like fully in it, right? There's still discernment, but so far I've been watching her for a few years. I don't feel any like strange energy from her, so I prefer her than Mr. T or Mr. P, to be honest. So, and she's also in charge of the, I think, Mana World Trust, and the only way for her to fund us is if we create our own government. So you guys can go into it a little bit. She's told us a lot of intels. You can take, leave, whatever you want. But I just like that the people's getting together. So awesome. Oh, thank you for hanging out with us today. I think it's a good time to end the live today. And Thanks for showing up and hanging out with us during this community chat. And I enjoy every single one of them. I love that everyone's so kind and so nice and help each other out. We really need more of this energy. And let me know, what should we talk about next time, if there's a topic in mind. I know some of you guys want me to talk more about the Octurian plasmic light, more about dragons, more about stargates. So those are on my to-do list. But if there's anything else that I can help you with my humble 30 something years knowledge, I'm happy to help. Many blessings, everyone. Now go out there, work your magic, shine your light, and keep your frequency high. And remember, having emotions doesn't mean you're low vibration. It's just a state of being. So don't feel bad if you feel sad or low energy and think you're low vibration. That's not true. You can still be a high vibe being, be natural. So sending you lots of love, lots of light, and have a wonderful day. Bye.